Florida football is back on the field on Thursday for spring practice. We got Jackie Franchuli on the line from allgators.com on S-Side, break down the Gators with Dan Mullen, having his news conference to start off spring practice on Tuesday. Jackie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Appreciate you stopping by just after listening to Dan Mullen for 40 minutes. And Dan Mullen addressed NFL rumors because, as you told me before we started to record, really the first time he has met with the media since all the rumors about him possibly going to the NFL.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So he did say he didn't have any interviews with any NFL teams this year. Said that he was more focused on getting back to Atlanta in the SEC championship game. But when we pressed him on saying, like, are you interested in the NFL? Because, the question was framed if he has serious interest, and he answered that he had no interviews. He never really answered that he had interest. So pushed back if he had any interest. And that's when he went on a pretty long answer about how many college coaches are concerned in the direction of college football, and they're concerned with the future of how college football will look like. He said that, they're trying to figure out what the future holds. He did mention that, he loved being at the University of Florida. He said it's a great program. They have a great fan base, great history. And he, again, said there's opportunities to win championships every single year. But he reiterated this concern in college football. He didn't go into detail when it comes what exactly are these concerns, but he just kept saying that they don't know what 3 or 4 years down the line will look like in college football, and that's the reason why some college coaches are going into going to the NFL rather than staying in college football. So take that as you will, Mark. It seems that he is more open to the NFL. He does have 3 years left in this contract. And as you know, generally the ideal situation when it comes to college football programs, if a head coach is within 4 years, they would like to extend the contract so they're not 3 years or less. It kind of gives more stability to a program. It avoids the whole negative recruiting aspect from it. He kind of says that's not up to him. Let me see if I can read you the exact quote, because I don't want to misquote him on this, because that was an interesting thing as well. Because we asked him about, do you feel like it's going to negative recruit you? And he says, I don't control that part of it, so I've got nothing to worry about what I control, which is just getting teams ready to go to practice on Thursday. That can be in somebody else's press conference. That'll be a good question for them. So I'm guessing he insinuated Scott Strickland, the athletic director for Florida. But yeah, it's just it's very interesting. That is something that we're still waiting for the extension for Mullen. That is not something that's been open yet.
Jackie, something we addressed a number of conversations that we've had since the Cotton Bowl is just the very odd extremes to this past season. The triumphs, the accomplishments of getting to the SEC championship game, playing Alabama closer than anybody else, beating Georgia finally, all those things. But then on the downside, just the theatrics of the Missouri game, the Darth Vader costume, the LSU loss, the Cotton Bowl debacle, the whole thing from the negative side. Did anyone ask, was there any address of where the program stands and how the look of the season was displayed, late in the season?
Yeah, so there was, we did talk about it, how it was a lot of ups and downs. So Dan Mullen was actually asked about some of his, I guess you want to call PR snafus from last year. So he was asked about that. And he was saying that, he made sometimes regrettable things. He regrets some of the stuff that he said that didn't come off the right way, or he says he got interpreted in a different way when he made light of something, and then he said it got legs of its own. So he said he's always willing to learn. He's trying to still remain friendly with everybody, and he just kind of basically saying that he's still going to be open, and he's not going to do one-word answers or anything like that. So he kind of avoided looking back, but he's trying to look forward and not do those issues again. So I don't. It was kind of a long-winded. I regret what I did, which is more than we got during the season. Um, so yeah, so I think he realized all the stuff that happened last year has had a negative perception on Florida, especially with the way the season ended. We talked about this. The way the season ended at Florida, you would think that with a Heisman contender, with a overwhelming All-American tight end, with some guys going the first round of the NFL draft here soon, and with them coming close to beating Alabama and showing themselves quite well in the SEC championship game. You would think that this would be a season that we're talking about how the steps that the program move forward. But then when you consider LSU game, which is the game they should have won but didn't, and you see the Oklahoma game and you see all the PR issues, that's what we're going to focus on until the new season comes along. Um, so I think he's realized that, and he's kind of backtracking a bit without fully backtracking, which is what Dan Mullen does. He backtracks, he takes one step back. One step forward, but 3 steps back. So that's usually what he did, like the NFL situation. He took 1 step forward and he took 2 steps back with his second follow-up question. So he understands a little bit about the perception wise, but he's not going to change who he is at the end of the day. This is Dan Mullen. This is Dan Mullen who's been Dan Mullen for over a decade as a head coach. This is who he was as an offensive coordinator of Florida. I don't expect Dan Mullen to really change his personality after a couple months.
It's great to be on the line with Jackie Franchuli, who just left the Dan Mullen news conference at the cusp of spring practice, which starts on a Thursday. You can join Jackie at allgators.com on SI. All right, a new spring game was announced. Spring practice is about to start. Constant churn of personnel losses and gains in college football, but especially for this team. Trask gone, Pitt's gone, wide receivers gone, a lot of defense gone. So just in regards to spring practice, I'll leave it wide open in regards to what maybe Dan Mullen had to say about objectives this spring, or just your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a shame there'll be no spring game. I think we can start off with that. Although Dan Mullen actually said, the spring game, what you get out of it, it's the celebration for the players after all your hard work. He said, it's great to see the fans and you get excited because you're in the swamp. So those are the things that he will miss. But he honestly said he'll get more because you get 15 practices, which included the spring game. He said he'll get more as a coach by having a normal practice. So as a coach, he doesn't mind that we won't have a spring game, but he understands why fans will be disappointed. He understands at the same time, why players will be also disappointed because, at the same time, this is the opportunity where you can have, one of your younger quarterbacks exhibit in a game, and not having to worry about the score. So those are things that he realizes that they're going to be a loss. And honestly, what he was saying was, if you think about it, last year they didn't have spring practice at all. Don't forget, I remember like it was yesterday, we had Dan Mullen available to us for for preview to spring practice. And then 2 days later, everything kind of shut down. So when you think about that, a lot of these young players never had a spring. Anthony Richardson didn't have a spring. Josh Braun, the offensive lineman who enrolled early, didn't have a spring. And honestly, when we talked about the offseason last year before COVID happened, we were thinking that Josh Braun would be one of those younger guys who might have gone into the first team rotation, at least being the 2 deep for the O line, if he had that spring kind of development period, and he did not have that. So now these players who didn't have a spring last year will get a spring this year. And this is where a lot of players make huge strides in their development. Spring is such a crucial time for these athletes. And also, don't forget, last year, because of COVID too, a lot of these athletes had to do a lot of their off-season workouts and spring workouts from home with Nick Savage, showing them YouTube videos and doing stuff like that. So a lot of those things were missed last year. And this is sort of stuff that, Dan Mullen is saying we get to have that. So this is something where he said that he's really excited about, was because this is where you can really see the development in the players. And honestly, if you really look at what happened during the last season, a lot of the stuff that we saw, granted, a lot of the stuff was also veterans who made mistakes, but some of the younger guys didn't get that boost of development. And you really have to look at that didn't have a spring practice. Some of these young guys were thrown out there with no spring practice out of their belts. They didn't get to watch film of each other playing. They didn't get contact. A lot of the defensive problems also happened because they had no contact practice until fall camp. So this is all the stuff that he's looking forward to. And I understand that, this, you know, as a person looking at football, you're like, yeah, you know what? Spring development really hampered Florida last year in a lot of places on the field. So this is something that he kind of focused on. Obviously, for us, when you're looking at it, spring, there's going to be a lot of holes to fill with a lot of veterans leaving. So you're looking at the defensive line. How's the defensive line going to look at? I'm curious about the O-line. They do have a lot of veterans coming back, like Reese and DeLance. But my question is, with all the right side issues that they had last year, what's going to happen? Are they going to, you know, possibly something that I was talking about before last season, Josh Braun? I would think Josh Braun would make it into that first team. So these are the questions that you're looking at. And obviously Kyle Trask is gone and Kyle Pitts is gone. So you're looking at how is Emory Jones going to look in that offense. So this is sort of stuff that they're thinking about. Brian Johnson, their play caller, is gone as well. He's now coaching in the NFL. So how is the offense going to look? So those are the things that they're going to be focused on in the spring, is how they can adapt the offense, kind of establish their run game a little bit more, and kind of use what Emory Jones or Anthony Richardson, you know, Dan Mullen doesn't like naming his number one quarterback. So we'll play around with that, Emory Jones or Anthony Richardson, and see how, you know, they fit in the offense.
12 early enrollees from the 2021 class, 5 transfer additions as well, headlined by DeMarcus Bowman. We'll know more, hopefully, about those players in several weeks. Jackie Franchuli, allgators.com. Got to join her and the rest of the staff right there covering Florida football. Jackie, as always, we appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Mark.